This manager started being willing to make space, as terrifying as it was for it. It was like at the end of its rope. It couldn't keep me together anymore. I was bursting at the seams with just this inner pressure of just, like I said, overwhelming. And kind of when it did make space, all of these sexual parts came out. I had been married, I guess, probably for 15 years at this point, and we had had three kids, and so much of the struggles we had had in our marriage and in myself just start to make sense.
Hey, curious people, you're listening to the Self-Led in Bed podcast, where we explore our fascinating internal sexual landscapes and discover our authentic sexual selves. I'm your host, Patricia Rich, a certified internal family systems and sex therapist, coach, and creator of the Self-Led Sexuality model for healing, pleasure, and empowerment. I've spent the last 30 years helping people to develop fulfilling relationships with themselves and others. If you're ready for some warm, smart, and juicy conversations, me and my parts invite you and your parts to get cozy and settle in. My new course, Introduction to IFS Through the Lens of Sexuality, is enrolling now. You can find a link in the show notes. I'm so excited to have a chance to hang out here with my friend Chelsea and to unpack some of the IFS concepts that are so core to IFS, but in light of Chelsea's journey. And also, Chelsea has been assisting me in teaching about using IFS, assisted in my introduction to IFS through the Lens of Sexuality course. And so we planned this just as a conversation to see, just how we can share some of the ways that, IFS can be so helpful when we're working with complex territory in our own system or perhaps helping someone else. So, Chelsea, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, I wonder if you could just tell listeners a couple things about yourself. Like, do you want to say where you are geographically?
Yeah, sure. Yep, I'm just northwest of Philadelphia in a town called Glenside, and then I guess kind of professionally, you sort of mentioned it, but I'm a level two IFS practitioner and a certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. And over these last few years, I've just loved getting to connect with you and I got to participate in your Bliss program and then getting to assist the first ever intro to IFS through the lens of sexuality. And that was such a delight. I just love, as I'm sure we'll get to, the intersection of IFS and sexuality has just been core to my journey. So it's exciting to get to be here.
And do you want to share anything about your identities that might help listeners know a little more about who you are?
Yeah, so I'm a white European descent American and genderqueer, and there's so many different ways to describe my sexuality, but one might be a bisexual lesbian or and we'll describe that journey too. But and I'm married to a man, and I have a cisgendered, gender nonconforming man, and we have three kids together.
Great. Thank you so much. And you know me already, and a lot of the listeners probably know me already, but I always like to just share again that I identify as a cisgender, although at times in my life, gender nonconforming woman. And I'm in this similar geographic area as you, which has been so delightful to have a local IFS colleague and friend. And married and have been in a very long-term marriage and with a man. And um, yeah, white and struggling a bit in these times with the larger world and my national identity and all of that. But that's for
Hmm.
another day, but aware, aware of that. Let's see. I was interested, Chelsea, when you were saying that you actually found IFS as part of your gender and sexuality journey.
Yeah, so one significant life event that is a part of my identity is having my mother die when I was 10 of a brain tumor. So it was a quick illness, 6 months. And that was a big T trauma. But I didn't really understand not only that, but that kind of drowned out the noise of a lot of other stressful things that occurred in my childhood and addiction in the family and legacy burdens and all kinds of stuff. So it really wasn't until I was 38, then I was a motherless mother. I was having kids in my 20s and so it was in my late 30s that really, as I've come to understand it, like my body knew what healing I needed, knew what authenticity was for me. And coming out from the inside was like somehow it was ready for me to kind of break through layers of psychological suppression and conditioning that had been built up over the years to allow me to finally have a sense of myself, to feel more at home in myself and feel more authentic. But how that really started was that I was just having overwhelming symptoms, heart palpitations and anxiety and I guess what you might call depression, but it was really sort of more like overwhelm, just like intense overwhelm in my life. And I had worked with therapists and different at different times in my life, and I found actually at this time I found a therapist that works with religious trauma because I was kind of ready to wrestle with the legacy of the religious upbringing I had had and that impact on my life. And when I started seeing this religious trauma therapist, I was describing my these parts of myself as having colors, and I just really felt like there was this blue part that was my religious part that was just running the show, and literally in its language, no other colors were allowed. Everything had to be blue. That was the only way we were going to survive in this world and fit in and get approval and all of this stuff. And this therapist offered and said, "You're describing yourself in terms of these parts. There's this approach called internal family systems that is about working with parts. Would you be interested in trying that in our work together?" And I was like, sounds good. Like anything that would help. Because I had always felt like I was trying to heal. And I put that in like air quotes, like just trying to feel better somehow or feel more at home in myself. And nothing ever kind of went deeper than the surface for me. And it was in finding IFS that I felt like suddenly I was able to go inside and really follow these trailheads, go on these inner pathways that made started to make sense of what was otherwise just this mess of consciousness inside of myself. And so we started getting to know this now in IFS terms. I would call this manager. And this manager started being willing to make space, as terrifying as it was for it. It was like at the end of its rope. It couldn't keep me together anymore. I was bursting at the seams with just this inner pressure of just, like I said, overwhelm. And kind of when it did make space, all of these sexual parts came out and they had this like they were very much red. And I sort of say that in a broad way when actually they were very much these sweet human parts of myself that I got to know at different ages. And it was so amazing. I had been married, I guess, probably for 15 years at this point, and we had had 3 kids, and so much of the struggles we had had in our marriage and in myself just start to make sense. And I just had this ability. I had something I could do. Like I really find that with IFS, I had this agency, this way of getting to know my parts, and they were having transformative experiences because they were being validated in a way they had never before. Like my young 6 or 7 year old who just like loved lingerie but felt very like, shut down for that, knew that she had to hide that and couldn't admit to that. And like, but I got to just sort of celebrate that for her. And as I worked with these parts, it feels like it kind of got, deeper and deeper. And I connected with a part that really, so my same-sex attracted parts, which had just been deeply suppressed and shamed. Like I come from a religious background that just liked to pretend that gay people don't exist. Like, I mean, just really harmful stuff. And I had internalized all of that in myself. And this was now 4 years ago. And I've been on such a journey of healing myself, opening, being able to connect these parts to love, integrating that into my authentic understanding of myself. And then even after that, then I got into this recognition of myself as genderqueer or non-binary because I was able to connect with all of these parts that just had a completely different sense of their gender than what they had been sort of shoehorned into my whole life. And so that all just kind of like came bursting out, over a number of years. And I just steadily was like, not only did I want to find a level three IFS therapist to work with one-on-one to help me on my journey, but I also felt so driven, so motivated to want to become a practitioner myself, to be able to offer this to other people because it was the most effective trauma healing approach that I've experienced in my life. And it continues to be. So I feel like I have like a freedom in myself and an authentic presence that was just impossible 4 years ago.
Well, thank you, Chelsea, for sharing that
Mhm.
story. And I just noticed different parts of me. And as much as I have talked with you about pieces of this, somehow hearing the story like that,
Yeah.
sequentially and in that way, I just feel odd because I'm imagining, I mean, and I appreciate this is often what happens, right? Like I was going to say how courageous it was to turn toward these parts, but I'm hearing you were having pretty intense symptoms, right?
Yes. Right.
And
Right.
sometimes, often that's what has to happen, right? Like when there's something in there that so challenges the status quo or goes so against, what our system has understood to be safe or, you know, even real, perhaps. Often it's the body start, like some symptoms start happening, right?
Yes. Yes.
And one of the things I'm hoping to do in this episode is bridge people in who might not be as familiar with some of the IFS language and processes. So I know you mentioned a trailhead, finding trailheads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, do you want to say for you what that word means to you?
Yeah, great. Yeah. I mean, it can mean many things. Something I love about IFS is it is very grounded so that you're always asking, where are you experiencing this part in or around your body? And as I mentioned, the that very blue associated manager that I had, this very strong religious part, is still, when I think of them, up in the upper right corner of my like sphere, like in this sort of out above my forehead. And then when I think about those somatic parts that were overwhelming, they brought me down into my body. So I had these heart palpitations, and that was the main this like symptom that I just worked with for a long time and got to know the parts that were connected to this experience in me. And not only, so it's interesting because for me, I experienced trailheads, you just meet with what is first presenting itself. So even if it's a symptom, and then by asking the questions, I just love the sense that IFS gives you the questions to ask, and you sort of know where to go at the next choice point, depending on what you're receiving back from what this part is telling you. So it just gives you kind of this literally like how to put one foot in front of the other as you're walking down this
Mhm.
trail to get to know these parts. And in my case too, when I followed this trailhead, it also like literally led me down into my body, like more deeply, like these parts were kind of connected. One was kind of in my upper ribs on the left side, and then down in my pelvis, and then, down my leg. So it just, that trailhead word is like apt in a number
It
of
apt.
ways.
It took you really on a trail through your body, it
Mhm.
sounds like. And I know Dick Schwartz, who's the founder of IFS, came up with that term trailhead. And the idea for him was, oh, if you're hiking somewhere, there's these markers. Oh, here's a trailhead. You could take a hike down this trail and you'll have some kind of experience, but you don't have to take that trailhead. Like you could keep walking and there's probably going to be another trailhead.
Yes,
Right. So I
yes.
think in our daily lives, there's things that grab our attention and we could kind of explore them or we could not explore them.
Yep.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's a symptom, it could be physical symptoms, something that's causing us physical or emotional pain, or it could
Yeah.
be a confusion or, a behavior. Right. So
Yep.
the idea of the trailhead is like, oh, I'm noticing something. I could pay attention to it more if I want to get to know it better. And maybe by getting to know it better and then using these other processes that we learn through IFS, it will lead me to some new territory or something I can
Yeah.
discover or maybe even heal.
Yeah. Yep. Leading to new awareness, certainly. That's like, and there's to me the trailhead language also helps me focus how so often our attention is focused outward. And then when you're going on a trailhead, it's like it does sort of lead you inward or into a more reflective state. And that sort of is going deeper in your system. And then so being able to follow that just leads to really surprising discoveries. So in the same way that you're on a trailhead, you don't know what's sort of around the bend or, suddenly you're at this beautiful vista or suddenly you're in shade or something. You can be just surprised by what you discover when you really just have this open curiosity to learn about these parts that you're meeting.
Yeah, it's funny. I had an image come up that I haven't quite had before when you were describing your experience with trailheads of how IFS offers us this way to explore. It's almost like the car. Like it's almost like, oh, there's this inner territory that A, you may not have even known existed. And now you're turning toward it. And then these different tools or ways of bringing some gentle inquiry. It's almost like, oh, this is sort of how you can navigate this territory where you're not racing, and
Yes.
kind of like oblivious to the environment. It's sort of like an attuned way to move through this inner environment
Yes.
and not like trample the lichen, like not like trample
Yes.
too much.
And that really made such a huge difference for my own healing journey was also, I guess, because I had parts that were just like we don't know what's going on. We're just suffering, like it's just, but then the framework of IFS was like, well, there's parts here. They can speak for themselves. You can ask questions, you get answers. And, those self-energy qualities of curiosity and then even compassion or just openness is what allows this relationship to deepen. And again, it felt like those suddenly I had handholds. Like I knew how to go, I knew how to move in this territory that otherwise was just like way too overwhelming for my
Mm.
system to even think about. So it's like, yeah, just a very
Yeah.
new experience.
So coming back to your story,
Hmm.
you had the physical symptoms and then you had all these overlays, right, of grief and loss and family, and then
Yeah.
what we call cultural burdens,
Hmm.
right? Like, or systemic burdens, that all these things that we learn in our social environments.
Yeah.
And when they work for us, we don't call them burdens, right? Because we're always we're socialized,
Hmm.
into the world. But when it's not in alignment with our own authenticity, it can become really heavy and really obscure the inner landscape because it's like the system is to choose. Like I have to, right? I have to survive in this world.
I feel like I have an illustration for what you're describing, which was like such a sort of like, oh wow, part of my awakening was like, and to register that parts are active whether we're conscious of them or not. They're always active, they're always playing a role inside of us, that like that's part of our wholeness. And a lot of our waking, we just are more or less aware of that. And to get to actually be in relationship with them is what's so transformative. So they're not just sort of running behind the scenes, running everything. And so after I came out, there was some point where I was going through the grocery store and a Melissa Etheridge song came on. So like lesbian rock star woman. And I have these parts that just loved Melissa Etheridge. That she was like my favorite, I just knew all of her songs, loved her songs. And yet I had another part that totally subconscious, this was not conscious for me at all, could tell another part liked Melissa Etheridge and knew that that was sort of a signal of queerness, knew that that was not appropriate in my culture that I was being raised in. And so just like completely dissociated me, like laid this blanket over me that let me know you're not allowed to talk about how you like this artist. We're just going to like, again, exile that part of myself that liked her music. Don't mention it, and even just don't think about it. Like like a sort of fog, like I've had these like, fog machines, like fog machine parts that can just like come in and be like, we're just going to pretend this doesn't exist. And those parts of me were doing that because they knew they had to, like that was what they had to do to survive. Um, and that was like just amazing to me to recognize after the fact. Once I heard this song, now I was in a position to like meet each of these parts, help them not reintegrate the whole system. So these other parts know they don't have to do that anymore, and welcome the parts of me that I've now gotten to see Melissa Etheridge in concert, like I've gotten to. And that was super meaningful for me to take my parts to this concert. And like they just that these parts are they were doing that work consciously behind the scenes and navigating these larger systemic, burdens or cultural conditioning without my conscious awareness. Like, I don't know how that, because now I'm conscious of it, but I wasn't then, but they like did the job really well. Yep.
And isn't it moving to discover them when you realize how much they have been doing and holding, even in
Yes.
utter isolation?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I've had, because before I found IFS, I guess it's kind of in the sort of mainstream culture, maybe like self-help culture, this idea of like, oh yeah, those things that we did to cope, they kept us alive. They kept us on the planet, and we can love ourselves, like loving the previous version of yourself or something, like even if you're changing, you can love the previous version of yourself because they got you here, and like, so I was a smoker for many years, and I had parts that were like, okay, how are we gonna like, I had these health conscious parts that wanted to quit smoking and quit drinking and quit, do all these things to get healthy again, right? And yet before finding IFS, I did a lot of work, which was like honoring the smoker in me that was like, you had no other way to tolerate existing, if you didn't have this substance to kind of get you through the hardest years of your life. And so I was able to relate with myself like that, but there's something different about understanding them as parts of myself with IFS. It like deepens the compassion because I really feel like there's a relationship. It's a real relationship inside. And so I have this like deep love and appreciation for these parts. And like, it's kind of hard to put into words, but it really was
Yeah.
different, with IFS than before trying to just relate to me, but a previous version of me or something. It's more living. It's more just like these parts are here. Yeah.
I'm thinking this might be a place to do a little demo, just a little demo of the kind of what it's like to relate maybe with parts or to unpack parts.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
and maybe one thing I'd like to say here is working specifically with sexuality with IFS, it's been um, so helpful because kind of what you're describing is that it's often so confusing and there's so much that's not accessible or it's never been the light's never been shown on it or it's just complicated. Like there's so many different things going on. Actually, I'm reminded of I I asked you a weird favor. I had the opportunity to be visiting you at your house and I appreciate you welcoming me into your house. And what means even more to me than welcoming me into your house is that you allow me into your house as your real lived life in your house. I don't feel like ever, I'm like a formal
Mm-hmm.
guest, and
Mm-hmm.
so there was some laundry. Um,
Right.
you had like laundry, you were sort of mid, maybe sorting or something, folding some laundry. And someone I worked with recently around her sexuality, who was just actually had an experience that a lot of people have is like when they turn toward their sexuality, it's so overwhelming. It's
Yeah.
like, and she said the best she could come up with to describe the feeling was it's like when you just have a mountain of laundry and you don't know where to begin,
Yes.
you know? And so as I was working with her, just like, okay, let's just like behold the laundry. Like, let's just
Yeah.
behold the sexual, like just whatever's coming up here around your sexuality. Like, just behold it. Just look at it. You don't
Mhm.
have to do anything. And then, she sort of calmed down and sort of looked at it. There was sort of like, well, okay, I guess there's a bunch of stuff that has to do with my whatever it was. I don't remember for her specifically, but sort of like, oh, this was really about my upbringing and my
Mm-hmm.
religion. But then like, oh, I guess this stuff's all about my puberty and all these like experiences I had, with guys. And then like, oh, this pile has to do with my marriage and my adult life or whatever it was. And there was so much relief in her system just to have sorted the laundry into like a few piles and it just calmed the system down. And so I believe I asked you at your house, may I take a picture of your laundry?
You have a picture of my laundry somewhere.
I do because and I my as I have not yet created the social media post that I intended to make about that, but I thought it was a great visual to go with that feeling of overwhelm when we start to look at our parts and it's complicated and
Yeah.
overwhelming. So maybe we could do a little piece and you could just, I don't know if you want to put yourself in a moment of your journey when you did feel a lot of overwhelm and confusion, or maybe there's something now on your journey that has that feel
Yeah.
to it. And just to demonstrate a little bit of what it is like to, okay, one word we use a lot in IFS that is a weird word if you're not familiar with IFS, which is unblending,
Yeah.
right? So as we find our trailheads or the thing that we're curious about, and then we encounter it, it may be that those parts are the ones we're really living through. They're almost like the glasses we're wearing are the glasses of the part.
Yeah.
And we don't know that we're in, sometimes we don't even know, like you said, we don't know that all these parts are working in the background. And sometimes
Yeah.
they're in the foreground, or like we
Right.
don't,
Exactly.
like we're living as the parts and we don't know that. And we
Yeah.
call that being blended in IFS. We have this blended, unblended thing. So sometimes we know we're blended and we need to blend and unblend all through the day. So, like right now, I'm probably blended with my educator part and my
Yeah.
podcaster part, and it's sort of consensually blended. But if I'm really blended and I don't know it, and it's not what I want to be feeling, but I'm feeling really anxious, like a lot, that might be a blended part that I would like to get to know better, and maybe it could release a bit.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? So that's what we call unblending. And when the parts unblend, we start to feel a little more of that authentic, like the exhale. Whoever we are, when we can really, really
Yeah.
exhale.
Yeah. And
So, yeah, go ahead.
I think of the word awareness. That just ends up being a really useful word for me of like when we bring awareness to what's happening and we have an awareness, then that actually can help the parts unblend too. There's like when we can be when we are aware, then we are actually sort of observing these parts. And so when they do unblend, they make space. I sort of feel like the room widens, it's not so constricted. And and in my experience, like that overwhelm of looking at the laundry pile of a new awareness of your sexuality or something, or gender identity. For me, I've had to make real good friends with my figuring it out parts. Like my parts that feel like they need to figure this out, or else those are the ones that get really overwhelmed because it's really hard. Like for them, it's really hard to sort this pile of laundry. But in my experience, my figuring it out parts are very, very blended. I have to takes me like, 15, 20 minutes into any IFS session. We're just kind of helping my figuring it out parts to unblend and then when they do, then woo, fun new awareness comes along. But that's one of like, again, how do you become aware? And sometimes it helps with somebody else reflecting back, like I'm hearing some figuring it out, energy, or I just start to notice, oh, I've started to know the hallmarks of when it feels like I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and then I can actually ask those parts to make some space to unblend
Hmm.
and they've become more willing.
Right here, what you're speaking of is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about bringing IFS to um, therapists who aren't familiar with it or who are maybe sex therapists or people working in this area, but who don't have this lens. Because in other forms of therapy, the figuring it out parts are the ones, you
Yeah,
know,
they're getting paid. Yeah, like
right? Like they are the ones, like in a more analytical kind of
yeah, yeah.
process. And so even listeners, this may just sound weird because you may be thinking we don't value the figuring it out parts. That's not the case. But that when we're always leading from those, we don't get to hear from
Yeah.
other parts. So I have to work with my figure it out parts a lot. And what they've learned over time is if they can sit back and kind of watch, they have a lot more data. Like I'll tell
Yeah.
them, you're going to have way more data. It's going to help you figure it out
Yes.
after the session, but maybe you can open up room. So maybe now we could try something. Do you have
Yeah.
something in mind that we could just play around a bit with some unblending or?
I do. It'll be really interesting. It came to mind as we were talking because in my journey, I have not had to look too closely at my relationship with male sexuality because I'm in a marriage to a man and we've been on our own journey. And then with my coming out, I've been way more focused on, this integration of my same sex, loving parts, and then sort of recently I had the opportunity, a kind of like triggering event, because really I do have a number of life experiences of, you know, positive and not positive, like interactions with male sexuality in my life as a female-bodied person, socialized as a woman. And I had this experience that kind of like, oh, whoa, there's stuff there I have not looked at. And there hasn't been, the trailhead hadn't opened before me. And so I recently had this trailhead suddenly come into my awareness through an experience. And I had parts that were like, maybe we don't want to go there, like
Mhm.
just like, but at the
Yeah.
same time being like, oh, isn't that interesting? Is that the next sort of chapter? I feel very okay with us, just exploring this. Like I have the moment in my mind and we could just like go down this trailhead and see
Okay, great.
kind of what's there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being willing to do that. And, so you said it in broad terms. Was there a specific like scene or moment that is when the trailhead appeared?
Yes.
And
And
and you can share as much or as little about that as you want
yeah,
to.
I'm there in my mind.
Okay, so you're in a place or time, a scene,
Hmm.
something like that
Yeah, in the recent
in
past.
the
Yeah.
recent past. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. And then what are you noticing in or around your body?
Yeah, it's this like fast tightening up, like any of those sea creatures that just like suddenly shut really tight. Like
Mm,
um
mm, mm.
just based on something I was seeing, it was just like whoop, this tight closing in the center of my like sternum, kind of like high up in my chest.
Okay. And would it be okay to just stay with that? Just focusing there, paying light attention to the sensations.
Yeah, and even in my inner experience right now, like I feel like I'm observing myself in that moment. I know what I'm felt in that moment, so I'm just sort of observing
Okay.
myself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
As you felt it then. Yeah. And was there any kind of emotional quality that went along with that?
Yeah, it was like oh, we don't want to feel this. We don't kind of like a we don't like what's happening.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I in the moment I got dysregulated or like I started getting sort of anxiety in my system.
Yeah. And how is it to now see yourself then with the anxiety?
Yeah, I feel curious and calm, like open. I have this feeling of like memory. We don't like being in these, I guess, yeah, it's kind of like a feeling of being trapped.
Yeah. And as you take in that memory and, is there a sense of kind of who's sharing that with you or what part of you maybe lived, that memory?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting one very strong memory, but it feels like it's one of many, like if I was looking at lots of photos, it'd be like lots of different memories, but one in particular, yeah, it's just coming up.
Yeah. And do you get it? Do you want to say more about the memory or just acknowledge it on the inside?
Yeah, I feel like I do want to acknowledge it and like I want to say I was maybe a freshman in high school or something, and there were French students who were here from abroad, and I got anyway, it's an interesting experience because I'm noticing, I don't know if it's this same part, or another part that feels sort of like, oh, can we say this out loud? It's so explicit or something, even though it's not that explicit.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you want to answer those parts with the concern? Just,
Yeah, they're sort of wondering, is it okay for you, Patty, that I say something that's maybe explicit,
it
Like,
is completely okay.
okay.
Yeah, it's very welcome.
Okay. So the moment is that I just know I was like making out with one of these French abroad students again, and even in that experience, I didn't actually feel very into this guy, or like I was very much in my act out straight sexuality because we know that that's what's expected of us, sort of a thing. And as I was sort of on his lap, I could tell that he had an erection, and it was just very terrifying for this part to, yeah, that's what I'm getting, and I'm just sort of acknowledging that that was really terrifying for this part.
Yeah. And is the part sensing that? Can it seem to notice?
Yeah, it's like it's interesting. I'm seeing the memory and I don't feel so connected to the me that's in the memory. I can sort of like I can imagine the sensation, but the part it feels like a part that's like scared on her behalf. It's like it's saying like I just hated this. I just hated everything about having to do sexuality or like sexuality was so confusing because I had parts that loved it in a lot of ways, but then in the ways I got to actually experience it, which was with men, I didn't like it. It just freaked me out.
Yeah. And does that make sense to you, Chelsea?
Yeah, and I'm curious, or I'm also aware of this part feeling like, is there something wrong with me like, I think what I'm noticing is how much this part has held that sense for all this time. Like it's been holding that for a
Mm.
really long time.
And how are you feeling toward it now?
Really grateful to be getting to connect. Like
Mhm.
I have this sense that's kind of like, oh, I'm so glad you didn't go away. Like you're right here with me right now, like I'm right here
Mm.
with you.
Mm.
Um, Even though it is very fixated on this past experience.
Yeah. And does it seem to notice you there?
Kind of.
Yeah. And this
It's
can
like
happen, right? Like it feels like it's maybe still on the job so much. I don't know if it could totally, if it's totally taking you in yet.
it's noticing me, and as I do, it's like it's taking on this format of like a black ball, like almost maybe like it has tar on it or something. And it's like one of those pe like little creatures that like it's just a ball, but it has like a face and like little arms that are sticking out as the ball. And it's like, and it's kind of noticing me, but it's also like shaking its fists at this memory experience. Like,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So maybe just letting it know you're noticing that about it. That ball sounds like it's getting more into connection with you now.
Yeah, it's liking the connection. And as it notices me and does connect it, it's getting a little bit calmer.
Mhm.
Um, and uh, which again, like for people listening, like literally the activation in my system has gone down. Like I was
Mhm.
feeling my heart rate was up, I had like nervous system activation, and now I've connected with this part,
Mhm.
it's calmed down.
Thank you
So
for
yeah.
that. So just, yeah, just to kind of say, like, so in this process, you've been
Hmm.
gradually feeling your way into this, and now it feels like you've gotten into connection with a part that has a protective function,
Hmm.
right? And then it's sort of showing you the memory of this other thing. So, you know, maybe there's a part it's protecting still from
Yeah.
that. I don't know if you want to ask it that or if there's another way you want to be with it right now, because this is a collaborative process, right?
Hmm.
So we're kind of feeling out together, like kind of what's needed.
I'm kind of like I'm finding myself very curious about the like black globbiness all over it.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll ask it what it's protecting in me, if that's the
Mhm. Sure.
one question. Oh, yeah. I mean, it just came back right away of like protecting you, getting to be yourself. Like, I'm wanting
Mhm.
you to be yourself.
Yeah. And do you want to ask it about the globbiness too?
Yeah. I'm getting the sense that it doesn't know what the globbiness is about, but it knows that it's just lived with it. And as I'm like observing it, it's like it definitely has like a tar, like if anybody's seen the movie like Fern Gully, like where it's just like this kind of caustic, heavy sticky slime or something, and it's just always been this like counterweight to everything it's been trying to do, like it having to lift its arms and wave its arms. It's like it's hard. It makes it hard for this part to do its job is what I'm getting. And I might have a figuring it out part here that's sort of like, oh, that's probably all of my, religious beliefs that I was raised
Mm.
with. Like that some
Yeah.
part is wanting to put the pieces together there, but
Mhm. Yeah. Well, what
mhm.
if we, or you asked this part if it acquired this through its own lived experience or if it feels like it came in some other way?
I think for people too, I just want to sort of name because it's fun to get to say it as I'm doing this of like my register, my inner register of when I feel like I've met the truth in myself is like I do have this like this compassion or this tenderness that comes up and it like feels so that's sort of how I know, oh, I just we just met something real and true about this part. And right when you said that you were phrasing that question, it was like it was through all of its experiences, all the times that it had to do this thing that it wasn't, like spin the bottle games, kissing guys, and saying what guy I had a crush on, or like, and kissing a guy for the first time. Just like this, it feels like this part kind of collected this heavy, sticky tar when through each of those experiences. And so it doesn't feel like it wasn't through choices of its own, but it's like it's carried the impact of that or something. It seems like.
Yeah, maybe do you want to thank it for letting you know that about it? And, this is an opportunity to ask it if it needs you to or wants you to witness more about it, or if it would be ready to release that. Would it have an interest in unloading what isn't its authentic nature?
Hmm. So yeah, really curious. Like the sensation in my chest has gotten very pointed, like a very small dot. And um and even as I was noticing, it was like all of that gooey tar kind of sloughed off, and it's like it's a white ping pong ball, like just the lightest. That's just the image I'm getting. It's like this very, or like, lottery balls, like when they would run the lottery, like these balls that sort of float in the air. They're so kind of light. So I'm just aware of this light, very lightweight ping pong ball kind of thing and that spot in my chest.
And I just saw you take like a deeper inhalation, a deeper breath, and maybe asking it with that black stuff that's sloughed off if it wants to do anything with that, like give it to earth, fire, air, water, or some other way, some other natural source.
Yeah, it's going down into the earth. Like the soil can take care of it.
And how does it feel now that it doesn't have that on it?
Yeah, I notice just like a lot of tenderness, like tears are coming to my eyes, like I'm feeling very like some sort of a release, some sort of and some part it's like it's just a ping pong ball. What are you doing?
Never just a ping pong ball.
Uh,
All right. And, you know, maybe just seeing if that ping pong ball needs or wants anything further, if it wants to notice maybe you as you are now or your situation maybe being different than it was before.
the ping pong ball feels pretty good. Like I feel very different and sort of like what does that mean?
Mhm.
Like what does that mean for me? Like for this part.
Yeah, good question. And, there's a couple things we could do here. And then would it be okay for you to come back and spend more time with this part
Yeah.
after we're done or
Mm-hmm.
soon? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What? we've been really gifted with being kind of witnessed to here with Chelsea is what we call an unburdening in IFS, where there's some sort of residue from difficult or painful experiences, sometimes, our own lived experience, sometimes sort of more like generational or cultural, that kind of adheres to some of our parts. And really, it was such an amazing imagery, right? Of, how it can't really move, the same way with that tar all over it. So that was a process where that part was able to shed that. And there's an opportunity sometimes to bring in the original trailhead again, and only if that's okay for you and your system. But just like imagining that situation or scenario and just seeing if it feels any different.
Hmm.
So that was some sort of encounter with male sexual energy more recently.
Yeah, I'm being with the part and kind of letting it know, like, or we're getting together, like, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like, you are not this. I'm really getting how sort of powerless this part felt, so constrained before, and like, and that this part wants to just, yeah, have choice, have agency, be like, I'm getting as we're like revisiting the r first point of the trailhead, like that it's, yeah, it's sort of thought it was still like that it was trapped by all that, like had that sense of obligation or something. And so, yeah, it's just kind of registering that's not the truth. And and that feels good for it. Like it likes being, in terms of, again, kind of like what is its role. I'm just getting a sense of that it does. And I really love this about so many of my parts. Like they get to be parts that get to know me, get to say, this is who I am, helps me live in authenticity. And even as I'm like saying that, I just am also having so much compassion for this part for all it had to live through. I was getting this really cute, funny image, Patty, as you were describing, like sort of talking about the process of like as if me and this part were looking through like a photo album of its past. Oh, remember when, like when you were that tar covered thing
Oh,
and like just sort of in this really sweet, like I don't know, it was sort of a precious, kind of
oh,
funny
yeah. And I love
experience.
that, right? Like just, and maybe listeners can notice just this shift now in your energy and tone and the lightness and the humor and the affection and like shared review with this part of its story. All
Yeah.
right. And almost, like you would have with a person, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
a child or something, like, so this is an amazing example of relationship building with our parts.
Hmm.
And I could say it or write about it till I'm blue. A part of me wants to say blue in the face, not to talk about your blue parts.
Yeah.
But I think you've offered your system in this way for people could sort of see like, oh, there's an actual relationship now between Chelsea's self and this part. And even if you don't totally follow the story and have every little detail of it, it's great because you can track the relationship almost without the distraction of like sometimes our parts get caught in narrative and miss that relationship building with parts. And that felt like self energy, what we call self energy,
Hmm.
when, like with Chelsea, when you're able to speak of the compassion and the care and the witnessing and all of that coming from this very open place.
Yeah, and it's like it feels like, and again, this is something we sometimes do too with parts, is like inviting them or seeing where they want to be in relationship with yourself now, or like in the present, or in your body, or whatever feels right for the part. And I'm noticing this part is, it's kind of like it had been sort of to my right, and now it's kind of like recentering itself at that point in my sternum. And it feels almost like that's kind of its place. Like it's this sort of sense of like it feels like it's connected to my heart, but it's meant to be like it's sort of a representative. Like part of its role is to, know who I am, like to speak from my heart, to be,
Hmm.
um, yeah, that conduit or something. Then so I'm just noticing that this sweet
Beautiful.
white ping pong
Yeah.
ball is now, yeah.
So lovely bit of integration there, right? Like the part then finding its natural role and it doesn't disappear, right? Sometimes people
Mhm.
feel, think that, oh, parts, when you do parts work, the idea is for the parts to go away or to melt into one and integrate. But here, integration is about finding its part in the system, its role in its natural place or
Hmm.
position
Hmm.
in the larger system of parts, all held in self energy.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like it's a helpful seeing it there, feeling it there. Like I know I can come back to it. Like now I know where to go to come back to this part when I'll check in with it later when I'm going to bed tonight or tomorrow morning when I wake up. Like just
Yeah.
somatically reach out and check in. Yeah.
So that's another piece that I love about working with sexuality through IFS, right? Is that you can then, as opposed to that laundry pile, right? You have a very specific
Yeah.
visual and sensation and understanding and relationship with this particular part, which often allows it to feel less scary and overwhelming when the feeling comes up and to sort of, oh, okay, I guess this part is here. Hey, are you here? Like, do we need to check in? Or, it
Yes.
might look like that. So
Yes.
it's not just a moment of insight, but there's the possibility of like an ongoing relationship and sort of the part almost becoming a guide or consultant
Yes.
in future situations.
And I know we didn't, or there's so much we could get into here, but like, I just want to name how much, yeah, IFS has helped me in experiences of sexuality. Like at that, it's been so wonderful. And I feel like I've learned that from you, how you connect IFS with sexuality is like that it's possible to be in relationship with your parts in real time, even in sexual experiences, and be doing some inner negotiation and listening or talking. Like, I know that might come across as sounding like, what? How do you have six conversations at once while you're also,
Yes. Yes.
in bed with somebody or something? But like,
Mhm.
but we all know how much we could be talking to ourselves in those experiences anyway. And so actually this is incredibly helpful. It's just been really wonderful for me too. Again, like you're saying, those relationships, like I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I wonder what that'll be like for this part as we, whatever, just continue to get to know each other and have a open channel of communication. Yeah, we'll see what that's like.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that piece too, because these parts we can, I think, and this could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to wind down soon here for
Yeah.
today, but that's the advanced class.
Yeah. Come to
I
the
feel like
intro.
as people are curious about this, I've really thought a lot about, how do I help people learn and like you know,
Yes.
in a kind of naturally paced way,
Yes.
how to become more self-led in bed, how to feel more self-led sexually. And so, getting familiar with some of these concepts and practices of the IFS model as Stick Schwartz put it out there, but applying it to sexuality is a big piece of it. And then, what kind of maybe elaborated or added or like maybe come up with some very specific concepts and ways to like continue to then go deeper and shine light on parts related to pleasure and in the moment experiences and ultimately opening up more embodied self energy, which
Yes.
brings sensations, I believe, like just of its own that are have sexual qualities. But we'll save that for another day.
Yeah. And I just have to say, like, I'm going to go ahead and compliment you, Patty. You are such a good teacher. Like I have been learning from you for a number of years and exactly what you just said. You have put in this work to be really thoughtful in how you are delivering these concepts and giving people these ideas that then I don't feel like it was like, oh, I have to do it this one way. I feel like I've been learning these concepts with you and then applying them in my own life to really great effect, but in a very kind of like my own way, like how I can't say that what I'm doing with it is like what anybody else might be. But I feel like that's something I've really loved about your combination of IFS and self-led sexuality is it really does bring together. You've like distilled it in a way that I find very useful.
That's lovely to hear that. That means a lot to me and all my
Mhm.
hardworking parts.
Yeah.
Been had many, many hours of banging their head like,
Yeah.
how do we do this? How do we break this down?
You've helped
So,
me. Yeah.
yeah, it's just really lovely to hear that and for you to come on and share this experience. And I know you'll be assisting in this next round of the Intro to IFS program through the lens of sexuality. And I'm learning as I go. It's kind of like a cool thing because the clarity comes through teaching it and exploring it and being offered the amazing gift of accompanying people into these very intimate places in their systems. And
Yeah.
then, oh, this is, then something comes out of the experience of it. Oh, I want to like present that in an even simpler way or a different way. And it's kind of
Yeah.
a cyclical thing. So I'm
Yeah. And
excited about it. And maybe as we're winding down, is there anything more you'd like to say about anything we've touched on today?
yeah, yeah, just that I think it is so great how you're bringing like what a better or just such a great way to have an intro to IFS through the lens of sexuality because that's where I really needed IFS the most in my life. I was never gonna get there. I had no other way to be able to start to make sense of my experience and such a charged and burdened, in my experience, topic that and in my own personal life experience. So like I found IFS has done so much good for me by applying it to sexuality. So for somebody to just like enter into IFS from the get-go through the lens of sexuality, you're just going straight to the heart, of this material to where it can really help people because it
Yeah.
can be such an overwhelming topic for our parts for so many different reasons. So yeah, I'm really grateful to get to be a part of it. And this has been so fun to be on your podcast today and thanks for facilitating that lovely piece of work in me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chelsea. And we'll have more information in the show notes based on things that we talked about today about the course and about, just where people maybe can learn a little more. If they just want to find some guides to some of the IFS concepts we talked about.
Great.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks. So wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Led in Bed podcast. Check us out at www.patriciarich.com/podcast, where you can sign up for a free guide to the 6 S's of sexual self-energy. And if you liked this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time.